I gotta be honest with you, I used to hate the parable of the talents. Every time I encountered it, something in me bristled. I'd read it, feel the familiar sting, and find myself lobbing complaints skyward. I didn't ask to be born into this system. Why does it have to be so hard? Why does it feel like the deck is stacked against some of us and not others? Sound familiar? If you've ever felt like life is one long uphill grind, like you're working your tail off and getting nowhere while other people seem to coast, then this piece is for you. I want to share something that changed the way I see all of it. Not a quick fix, not a hack, a reframe. And it starts with a parable I wanted nothing to do with. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus tells the story of a master who goes on a journey and entrusts his wealth to 3 servants. To one he gives 5 talents, roughly 20 years' wages per talent. To another 2, and to the third 1, each according to his ability. The first 2 servants invest what they've been given and double it. The third digs a hole and buries his. When the master returns, the first 2 are commended and rewarded. The third is called wicked and slothful and thrown out. Here's what I used to think Jesus was saying. This is the system I created. Work hard or get punished. Get used to it. I thought it was prescriptive, like God had designed a cosmic performance review. It felt burdensome, unfair even, and I sucked my proverbial thumb and I stamped my feet about it accordingly. But somewhere along the way, something cracked that dome of resentment I'd built, and a little light got in. What if Jesus wasn't prescribing anything? What if he was simply observing? What if the parable of the talents isn't a mandate, it's a description of the way things actually work? Those who invest what they've been given will see it multiply, and those who bury it will find that even what they had begins to fade. Not because God is cruel, because that's just the nature of existence. And that reframe changed everything for me. But that crack in my dome didn't come out of nowhere. It came from a book. I'd been reading The Emotionally Healthy Church by Peter Scazzero when I stumbled across a question that he poses. What is going on in you that Jesus Christ is trying to change? The implication was clear. The thing that needs changing isn't out there somewhere. It's in here. Up to that point, I'd been asking a different set of questions. Why is life so hard? Why is this happening to me? How long will this last? And those why questions are among the most emotionally deadly a person can ask. They keep you stuck, eyes fixed on the problem with no useful answer to be found. But what is this here to teach me? That question faces forward, and it opens a door. Now, it took me another couple of years to figure out the next piece. Vocationally, I had been working hard in entirely the wrong direction. Not wrong morally, just wrong for me. I was shoring up weaknesses instead of developing strengths. I'd been forcing myself into a role that fits someone with very different wiring, specifically someone much more extroverted than I am. Now, if you've spent years in forced extrovert mode, you know the feeling. There are days when you've got nothing left in the tank, and yet you still have to perform. And underneath the exhaustion is something worse, a quiet voice that whispers, "There's something wrong with me." And that voice is shame. And shame is a terrible place to build a life from. The shift for me came when I finally took a Clifton Strengths assessment. My top results landed squarely in the analytic and strategic thinking domains. And my first reaction was not exactly gratitude. It was more like, what the f***? How the heck am I supposed to monetize that? See, I had a picture in my head of what success was supposed to look like. Extroverted, influential, a natural room worker, and this wasn't it. So my first instinct was to argue with the results. But here's what I've learned. The assessment wasn't telling me what I wish was going on. It was telling me what was actually going on. And once I stopped arguing with it and started working with my actual design instead of against it, things began to shift. Not overnight, slowly, but meaningfully. Here's what I missed for so long about the parable of the talents. The master doesn't give everyone the same amount. He gives to each according to his ability. He's not running a fair and equal distribution system. He's investing in proportion to each servant's capacity. And the servants who are commended aren't praised for having the most, they're praised for doing something with what they had. The third servant's sin wasn't that he had less. It was that he did nothing. He buried it. He let fear and resentment convince him the system was rigged and opted out entirely. And I know that servant because I've been that servant. The sunk cost fallacy is a powerful force. When you've been grinding away at something that drains the life out of you, your conditioned mind whispers, hey, you've come this far. It would be crazy to change now. Just keep your nose to the grindstone. Maybe you'll learn to dissociate enough to get through it. And it keeps a lot of people stuck in a lot of misery for a very long time. But when you're in the middle of it, imagining a different life, one that actually energizes you, that feels meaningful, that you're actually designed for, it can feel like fiction bordering on fantasy, something that happens to other people. That mode of being, while it might occasionally produce a dopamine hit, does not produce meaning. Rabbi Harold Kushner said it well. The purpose in life is not to win. The purpose in life is to grow and to share. Grow and share. That's what the two faithful servants did. They took what they had, their particular talents, their unique capacities, and they put them to work. They invested them. They developed them. And in doing so, they created something that hadn't existed before. Greg LeMond, American cyclist extraordinaire, was once asked about the difficulty of his sport. His answer has stuck with me ever since. It never gets easier, you just go faster. That's the truth about a meaningful life. It doesn't get easier. But here's the crazy irony. When you're doing work that aligns with your actual design, when your effort is aimed in the right direction, it feels easier. You're working harder than ever, and you barely notice because you're in flow, because it means something. The goal is not to make life easier. The goal is to expand your capacity, develop your talents into strengths, and deploy those strengths in the service of others. That's what gives life meaning. And one of the rewards for pursuing that path is that the burden starts to feel lighter. It doesn't make sense until you're actually doing it, but I promise it's true. So what do you do with all of this? If you're in that depleted state of living from weakness, there are two things: awareness and initiative. Okay, let's start with awareness first. You can't play to strengths you don't know you have. If you haven't taken a formal strengths assessment, pick up a copy of StrengthsFinder 2.0 by Tom Rath. It comes with a code to take the assessment online. But fair warning, you may not love the initial results. I know I didn't. But sit with them for a while. The results are telling you what's actually going on, and that's always worth knowing. Then second, initiative. Work. Start by visioneering. And here are 3 questions worth sitting with. If I set out to change my life and I was outrageously successful, what has to have happened to justify my feeling satisfied with the life I've created? Second question, now that I've realized that vision, what does my typical day look like? Third question, based on that typical day, what is one tiny adjustment I can make today that will move me in the direction of that vision? Notice the movement from the big picture all the way down to today. One tiny step. Because despair is no way to live, and you don't have to fix everything at once. You just have to be willing to start. And if you're sitting there thinking, but Dave, you don't understand my situation. I got the mortgage, the kids, the medical benefits. I hear you. Those constraints are real. But I would gently ask, is it possible that your circumstances aren't actually your jailer? Is it possible that the real barrier is the voice inside telling you that change isn't possible? Because that voice isn't wisdom. That voice is fear dressed up as practicality. So take initiative. Get going and keep going. And level up your awareness. A little light can lead to illumination, and goodness knows where that might lead. I hope this is helpful. If it is, please share it with someone you care about. Someone who might be living from weakness or burying their talent. And if you want to go deeper on this, on the beliefs that keep us stuck and the strengths that set us free and the vision that pulls us forward, my book is coming. Head over to mycoachdave.net to join the wait list and be the first to know when it drops.